Badoo,
Here.
Brenda DeFrato. Here. Tiara Ekstrom, Suzanne Schwartz,
Here.
Will Wade, Tiffany Benson. Here. You have a quorum of 3.
Okay, we have no public comment on closed session,
No public comment.
so we're going to adjourn the closed session, and we'll be back out at 5, right?
Yes.
We'll be back out at 5 o'clock.
That's fast. Did you?
Is there any other boilers that are kind of on the verge of going out that you think we may need to replace shortly that we should be looking at also with this?
Sure. Center Elementary, the reason Center Elementary is not on there is because we are thinking about possible options at the school and maybe getting away from the boiler system up there and doing individual HVAC units.
Okay,
But we have some things to look into before we make that decision.
perfect, thank you.
Any other contracts?
Yes, we have two other ones. So we have Western Engineering, and that is actually, that particular one is a change order on a contract. As they were, so Western Engineering is doing all of the asphalt work. So that contract came to the board last week. As they were, so they were supposed to chip up 1.5 inches of the existing asphalt and overlay. Well, when they got to the work, some parts of it were not 1.5 inches thick. At Cambridge. So there was a little extra work that had to be done on that to get that compacted. There are some other bits and pieces that we're noticing are becoming a problem. So something may have to come back to the board in August.
So is this only the front main parking lot?
No, so with Cambridge, actually, parking lot's fine. This is the playground area.
Oh, okay. Oh, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, so the blacktops at the sites, it's not just parking lot. It is all blacktop
Okay.
on the play areas.
So we should have a well-drainage level surface for the kids for many years to come.
And Gabe, can you remind me, so you're seeking approval, is it for the additional $10,000
Yes.
for that?
Yes.
Have we already previously approved the contract for all of
Yes.
the blacktop to the tune of 1.2 million?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so this is just the $10,000 on top of that, thank you.
You want to talk about the last one, and then we'll go through each one, the board, and approve or not approve?
Yes, the last one's ELOC, so our after-school program, and that's so far it's at Center Elementary School. Continuing the program we started last year, but we are planning for some additional students as well. So this is a contract with the city of Fairfield, who runs the day-to-day operations of the program.
So Dave, as much as we dug into this and everything, we're not coming up short of money, because there's quite a bit of money there to run this, right? I mean, we don't need to dig into our own funds, right?
So far, no, but it definitely gets tricky. If we had to run the program, with what the state gave us and all of the duplicated students who we have to offer a spot to accept, not even ballpark. We would not even ballpark it enough.
Right.
We'd be getting maybe half of what we actually need to run the program, but since not every unduplicated student requests a spot in the program, right now we're able to make it work.
Right. And if I remember, and all the homework I did on this is, what you just described is consistent at all the schools. Nobody's 100%, so hopefully the turnover won't surprise us, and it'll kind of stay the same, right? Now, the first couple of years' money, did we have to return that to the state?
Yes.
Okay, and that's all cleared, that's all over and done with. Okay, great.
So unduplicated students are students who qualify for free reduced meals. They're foster homeless or English learners.
Board members, any other questions?
Nothing.
Okay, so we'll take the contract with the boilers first. I'm looking for a motion and a second, please.
I'll motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The second contract is the addition to the blacktop contract, an additional $10,000 to complete the project. Looking for a motion and a second to approve.
So moved. Or I'll second. I defer to Suzanne.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And the final contract, ELOP After School Program and Center. Looking for a motion in a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Moving on to number 7. Travis Unified District Governing Board Workshop. We're going to run this workshop. We're going to start right now, and we'll adjourn at 7:15. I'm going to speak for a second, then Tiffany's going to do the introductions. You don't see a big schedule, board members, with telling us what we're going to do and what order we're going to do it, and all the rules and laws that are so many that we have to. It's a workshop. I kept the agenda clean on purpose. We know we have 2 hours. I thought we maybe, I'll let you do the introductions, but we have a gentleman here that's going to facilitate us through it. And the reason you don't have this big piece of paper in front of you with all the words on it, because I'm a firm believer, and I've seen it work, you know, let's address something that's really important to each board member, and take it from there. So we're not told what we're going to workshop on, but I've got several important things, I know we all do, you know, that are kind of important to us. So we'll pick and choose, and we're all adults here, we'll do it just fine. So Tiffany, go ahead for the introductions.
Sure. So I would like to introduce Mr. Hanson, and he really is here in service of this work, just to be here alongside you. He has experience as a superintendent, also as a board member, both in schools and in other nonprofits. And Mike, I don't want to talk too much about you, because I really think tonight is about you guys, the board members, and what you are bringing to this conversation. He is here in service of that and all of our work. So without further ado, Mr. McKenzie.
Hey, Mike, before you say one thing, I'm going to say one other thing. I have such a good comfort level, which I didn't,
Oh,
because when we do things like this, I've seen so many go bad. Everybody brings their ideas here and stuff. I met with Mike. We had a really good meeting and stuff, and Mike, I'm glad you're here, so take it away.
Is that almost close to Matt Lesney?
It's about as close as you can get, Mike.
That's great. Okay, so thank you for that. I think you're absolutely right. This, I think facilitate is probably too strong a word. What I'm going to do for the next hour and 2 hours and 5 minutes maximum, because I got your cue on that one too, 7:15, I listened, is kind of guide and encourage you through a conversation. One of the best things I did, obviously meeting with Matt, and then as you all know, I had individual phone calls with each of you. It was fairly remarkable, and this is worth hanging on to for just a minute. Will was my first call after talking to Matt, and he said, what do we
Don't
actually-"
embarrass me, Mike.
No. But I learned a lot. And Will said, so where are we going to land? I said, I don't know yet, but I'll know when I talk to all 5. And this was something that I wanted to call out, because Travis Unified enjoys something, in my estimation, that absolutely does not exist in most places. You would think it does, because you're all service-minded and like-minded, but it just does not. In most school districts where they're struggling to operate, not that you are, they're struggling to get by, board meetings are drudgery, there are a lot of problems that don't get talked about. Here, it became very, very clear to me, you have what I'm calling exceptional positioning as a board of trustees for this school district. Number one, it came across from all 5 of you. Crystal clear, all of you are at core are about the kids of this community. Pure and simple. I can list for you 75 school districts right now that I know that would all say, we're all here for kids, and their behavior demonstrates otherwise. Just simple. It's sad, but it's true. So number one, you're all about the youth of the community. The second thing, this is incredibly rare. All 5 of you expressed your deep respect for one another. All of you. For all the rest. I just want to pause on that, because again, you may not recognize it. It is incredibly rare that that occurs. There's always somewhere on boards issues from the past or have occurred on the board that don't get addressed, and they fester, and it becomes sand in the gears. No hint of that, which is remarkable. And the third one is, you have a strong bond with your superintendent. Like when you think about those 3 together, I can name every district for you and say they're not as functional as you because bond with the superintendent, or because they don't respect each other, or it's a combination of the 3. It is really remarkable. So I encourage all of you, when you're working together, to keep those 3 in mind, because they matter way more than you ever can put words to. So I wanted to make sure that we call that out right out of the gate. Because it matters. I mean, it's just a big deal. So there were big themes as well as I talked to you about. I got a few things to show you just by way of introduction, and then it's going to be a conversation between the 5 of you. There were big themes that kept emerging as I talked to each of you. It's not for me to summarize that and throw it back to you. It's for you to have that conversation that Matt was talking about tonight, so it emerges from you organically. You'll know it much more deeply and more completely that way. Words, Matt, let me do this one first. So I've got this little chart here. We all know things. Accomplished individuals, we know what we're doing, we move through life, we know certain things. There are other things that we don't know. And for all of you, if I ask you to think about the biggest lesson you ever learned, it may not be an easy lesson, or it may have been something in school at any level that you struggled with and you finally had a breakthrough. But when you came to know something new, it was after a lot of hard work. You don't just go from I don't know something to I know something just because you want to. It takes work. And the point here is, when you're going from unknown to a place of known, it's a different path for every person. The same unknown is going to take different paths for all 5 of you. And if I had a 6th pin, I would put Tiffany up here as well. But this person may go around the block and then come back around. But they'll get there. They'll get there. And you get the point. Other people might be more straight line. And I don't even know what color I've got left. Blue? No. Purple, green, doesn't matter. You get the point. They're all different paths. So as you're in this place of tremendous respect for one another and being about the kids, keep in mind that when you're working together, I strongly encourage you to acknowledge each person's journey from where you are to where you want to get. It's all going to look and feel different, but trust, as you already respect each other, you're all going to get there. In the maximum degree that you can help colleagues get there with what you know, share it, right? The diversity, you've got that wonderful mural down on the wall, like Unity Through Diversity. It's kind of like this. That's what this is about. And it's hard for adults to do that. It's hard for adults to do that in a public space. I'm not suggesting you have to do it on the board dais all the time. But this is a big deal, too. And I think you are primed to do that. 2 more quick caveats before we turn to you. I think it's under here. Oh, this one's down. This is the Mike Hansen special. we've got an X and a Y axis here. And I write this up. Everybody says they have a desire to improve, to innovate, to get better, to make it better than they found it. I scratch out desire, because I really don't care about desire. I care more about commitment, right? And as trustees, your commitment around these things has you wildly positioned. So as we go further up on the y-axis, right, we never really touch the wall, but we get closer and closer as we go higher and higher on our commitment. Over here, on this axis, is level of comfort. And you can kind of see where this is going. That's 0 and that's 0. So the higher we get to a commitment to improve, by definition, the lower we are on our comfort level. Most people can't live here, right? Like, I'll be so committed to improvement that I'm miserable, because I have no comfort, right? And if you go out here to the level of comfort, and you want to get out here way where your comfort, the commitment to get better drops dramatically, right? So there's no real easy way to look at this, other than I just advocate shoot right up the middle and own, and just be able to talk about it. Own, like, we want to get better. That's a rough vote for me. I'm not sure I know enough. Or what's that going to do in the community? Or what about what Beard Center Elementary? You already raised a question about other boilers, right? You're always making decisions about trade-offs. This is one of the biggest trade-offs. And this is the land out here of being comfortable with the uncomfortable. You learn as trustees, as publicly elected leaders in town, to be able to hold that tension. It's never easy. It's always a challenge. But this is the real thing. Right? And you all know people at work that care a lot more about level of comfort than making things better. And I'm probably betting, all 5 of you, based on my conversations with you, you don't like working with people who are all about discomfort but not getting better. But your respect for each other has you committed, but in a healthy way. So I'm going to suggest that you're already trying to work in this area, and I encourage you to do it. The last thing I'll say, and then we're turning to you, is this. These are two of my phrases that have just developed over the last 30 years, and they seem to be true way more often than not. So I'll explain the first one just a little bit. This has to do with your superintendent and her daily work and her team's work. It also has to do with you as a governance team of 5. You gotta evaluate the superintendent, you gotta adopt the budget, you just adopted contracts tonight, you asked questions about it. The bottom line is, running a school system for a community is really hard work. So it's always about everything. Just not with equal intensity and focus. You can't always be about commitment to improve on everything, every day, otherwise the level of comfort drops to 0, people burn out, they're fried. It's always about everything, just not with equal intensity and focus. Your superintendent and team will probably tell you, we're getting a little out of whack sometimes. Here's the big deal, is the red comma, right? I used to tell leaders, it's always about everything. And they would go, oh my God, he's not going to give us a break. It's always about everything, he wants it all done now. Like, you guys, I had to go back and re-explain it. You missed the point. The point was the comma. It's always about everything, true, comma, just not with equal intensity and focus. You can't do everything at highest level of intensity and focus all the time. It's something you'll grapple with the big issues you have in front of you, with your facilities plan, your bond work, your strategic plan. Like, all of that won't fit through the door tonight, but over time it will. You have to figure out how you're going to be steward to that, which we'll get into. So that's the first one. The second one is, somebody said this to me, Actually, this was staff sending it to me. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that works with boards too. Mike, you can have anything you want. Like, what's your priority? What's the top of the list? You know, anything you want. You just can't have everything. And it's something you've already bumped into, no doubt. 3 of you are newer on the board, 2 of you have more experience, but all of you have already dealt with it. You bumped into it. So in that spirit of phenomenal background and building block for you to launch from, you all respect how each other is going to go from the unknown to the known, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, and holding those tensions as well. Look at that. It is only about 12 minutes in, and I'm just about to start talking. How's that now? That's pretty good, right? You can go ahead and say it. Thank you, I got a thumbs up. All right. So, a couple of things. I thought the way for you to consider this, as I heard you, was kind of, and this is as far as I get with facilitating and having an agenda, even though it's not printed, is there were 2 things that came up repeatedly in all conversations. And those were kind of the facilities and bond work, and then the strategic plan work, right? They were 2 big ones. And it dawned on me, and actually I had some prodding from one of your colleagues, that it might be worthwhile for the first part of the conversation to have the trustees who were here when that stuff launched give a little background and context to the bond, the need for the bond, and why the strategic plan got done the way it did for the full board. Primarily for the 3 newer board members to understand the context of why that happened. You can judge it all you want, but you need to know, right? So I'm going to ask you 2 guys to talk about that a little bit. And then the other thing that came up were there were great themes that were coming up that were distinct from those 2 things that I'm not sure have been voiced for the full board to hear. So that's what we're going to call on the 3 of you to share more about, like, what's in your head? What do you want for this place? Can I ask all of you the same questions? Why'd you do this? Why do you serve?
You fool.
I stopped short of that. Why do you serve? And all of you were wildly consistent. You have different angles into it, but wildly clear about why you're serving. What was the other thing I asked? I asked what was going well, what do you think could be improved? Well, my second question, I'm blanking on it right now. But you all got the same questions. So that's what I'd like to do, is to turn it to you as a group, and primarily our board leadership, the president and vice president, to talk about how do we get to the bond, and how do we get to the strategic plan, and what do you guys think about where we are right now with those 2 things? Like, what are your musings after you've watched it for a little bit of time? Bond is, by the way, I've said this to all of you, but I'm going to say it again in public. You passing a bond is monstrous. It is, well, geez, I drove up and I saw a 6th grade project, I'm like, already? Holy smokes, right? It's a big deal. It transforms communities. It makes it different for kids. And make it different for kids, you make it different for their families. So it's not to be at all minimized, because it's a huge deal to pull off. So with that, I'd like to turn it to the President to maybe share some thoughts on these things.
Can I do a public apology first, before we get into that?
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Well, I apologize for being late. I honestly thought it was started at 5 o'clock, so I apologize for showing up late and ill-prepared, but back over to you, Matt. So sorry for wasting your time.
Hey, I think we're going to leapfrog this real quick. So if it's okay, we'll kind of feed off each other. So my perspective, and I think Will agree with me, when we came on the board, in my opinion, when I came on this board, and I'm thinking my partner here too, because of his long military management history and stuff, is what got to me is we didn't have a long-range plan here. We were just shooting from the hip, and it was just, and those plans you're talking about, that's the first ever this school district ever had. And we got to the point where we got the board together, and I think that was one of the best sessions because we got a lot of work done. And we created our long-range plan, I call it our Bible, you call it whatever, but we have things in prior, and they're all working documents, and we actually had something. And then when you talk about the bond, a lot of people, well, so when we went for the bond and we didn't pass it, and then we came back 2 years later, I think Will agree with me, we started way before we really even said we were going to have a bond. We started, Gabe, with the fencing around there. We took up a lot of meeting time. And people are saying, Matt, why do you keep bringing this stuff forward? And Will backed me up. But we started educating people on, hey, we're lacking here, we're lacking there. And we had a social media site at that time that was just friggin' off the charts with numbers and opinions. And people started, oh yeah, maybe we do need a fence down. So we prepped them for the bond. And I think we did really, really well. But I'm gonna leapfrog over to you.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate it, thanks, and I appreciate this opportunity, Mike, because a lot of what went into this was not just the board, but community feedback. And just to back up a little bit, so we are a very junior board, period, dot. So I appreciate your strengths, but we also have weaknesses on there, Mike. And I'm a realist, and I also know that, you know, we have some vulnerabilities and weaknesses, and the fact that we're a junior board, we don't have the, you know, the ivory of our board who had been on the board for 16 years and brought a lot of that continuity, consistency, and perspective. So we tend to vacillate a little bit just because we're all new and figuring this out together. But for those who don't know, Matt and I ran, and there were 2 seats available and 5 people running, and it was a pretty competitive environment. And a lot of that was based on the fact that, you know, in my humble opinion, this is Will Wade's personal opinion, the district was a bit stagnant. You know, we were happy with the status quo, we were happy on the right side of your chart over there, Mike. And hey, we're riding the bow wave and everything's copacetic, when in reality, everything was changing around the school district and the district wasn't adapting. So we kind of disrupted it, and by the way, we've never strategized on coming at it together. We just share a lot of the same methodology, a lot of the thoughts, and a lot of the same processes. But we will never collude. We do it in public, and we'll, you know, have our disagreements, and we've had them and everything else. So I don't want ever to see that it's Matt and I against the world by any means, because that's not the case. And we've had our disagreements. But while running for the board, I decided that I thought this bond was the, you know, probably the most important thing, more so than my own campaign. And a lot of people faulted me for that. And when the board pitched, it was like 6 months before the election, the board elected to put the bond up and had no time, had put no investment into laying the groundwork for the bond. And 2 of our board members actually voted to not put the bond on the ballot that year because they didn't perceive there was public support for it. And there was a small group of us who took that on as a public community action and went out and started walking the neighborhoods. And those were hard conversations, because you're a member of the public trying to represent the district. The district hadn't done their homework. We didn't have our facts in place, but we knew we had a need. And trying to communicate that on behalf of the district was a really, really, really difficult conversation. And I will say, we took a lot of lumps that year. And the bond ultimately didn't pass. We got over 50%, but we didn't make 55%. And those of us who were working hard on it took a lot of notes. Hey, if we're going to do better, we need to fix this, this, and this. And as Matt said, we took notes and we came back and we started filling in those holes on where the district was lacking effective communication, effective planning. And those products, while painful, helped us get on the same page, and they are by far not perfect. As Matt said, they're the first. they require some, I'll say living documents require some tender loving care going forward. And I thought that was going to be one of our key outputs from this meeting, because I think it was Gabe who asked at a meeting, hey, what is your board priority? Because this facility master plan is just too overwhelming. And so I think we owe the district a little bit more fidelity on our desire, because now we've got $65 million to spend responsibly. So that's a little bit of kind of who we are, what we did, why we did what we did. And I think we are in a much, much better place, as represented by the public confidence, 65% approval rating for the bond, which is almost unheard of. Because I think we did our homework, and I'm proud of those documents. And they're, again, always can use some work, but I think put us on a really good path on stating not only who we are, but where we want to go. So anyways, a little bit of background. I don't know if that answered your question.
No,
Mike.
it did, especially on the bond front. Where did the strategic plan idea come from?
Came from us, we wanted a long-range plan,
Okay.
and in municipalities and stuff, it's usually strategic plan. And we gave the district direction, and we said, hey, let's facilitate something, and it got facilitated. The board was really, I think it's the best thing that ever happened to the board when we did that plan. And another thing that was just, I felt so good about too, is another long process, is when we hired our last superintendent. That exercise was great for the whole board, in the room, hours after hours. But I think with the strategic plan, now we have a purpose, and there's little bumps there, when we brought this forward, which I started on this field to get it replaced in 2018, and it took a bond and a strategic plan, and it was just at the end of its life, which helped more as much. And I took some lumps, hey, our gym's old, the roof leaks, why are you doing the field, this and that. So you have the plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, Will, you have the football field kind of at the back end of it, right? So I had to explain why we took this and moved it way up here. It wasn't it's a working document, safety, things that come up, change priorities, and we as a board, we're adjusting. But we have the framework to go down, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed on this Prop 62, because then that 65 million grows to over 100 million. It might be 3 or 4 years from now, but it puts future boards in good place,
Do you have any questions?
We're turning the heat up?
I would love to be able to fix that for you.
Sorry.
I don't.
Hey, I will say one thing. When Will was running to be elected, and he was heading the entire bond committee the first time, I really wasn't that much help. And I've said this in public before, because I wanted to get elected, and I needed people to vote for me as Will did. Hey, Matt, what about that bond? Well, I wasn't going to ask people, hey, vote for me, and by the way, open up your wallet and say yes to this bond. So I wasn't that much help the first time around. I didn't say don't vote for it, but I didn't go all out. But so at the end of the day, he did the load of 2, believe me. And then people came back to us. I got the Southtown people that just moved in. I think you spent a lot of time in Southtown preparing for the second one. Oh yeah, all those good comments and those good things, take notes and share it. That was our success, because the community believed in us at that point. Whether it was Joe Blow hanging door hangers on everyone, it didn't matter. It was the fact that it took, well, before we started, it took 16 months, but we've got 65% of the voting community behind us, and that's with, they're already paying CFDs 1s and 2s, so anyway.
I'll tell you guys, the bond was great, but like my overkill for both of you in voting was the fact that I invited you to an event for a band that was out of town and you both showed up.
Yeah.
So don't think that it's just, like, there's a lot of things that you guys did that.
And you know what? I remember that event, and I'm going to just clarify what Will says. I probably called him at his house in the last 2.5 years 3 times, 4 times. Once, we don't collude on anything. That, when I was, where the spectators were and I was here and everything, I had no idea you were up over there. You know, so it,
But it's the first event
yeah.
that, for band for the school that I have, I mean, Coda's been in 3 years now, like, as far as prior to all of us, because now it's awesome. But like, that's the first time I've ever noticed or heard of a board member going to a band event, let alone it being out of town.
Thanks for the input.
So,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
love it.
What I learned is band does things after school, like other extracurricular, but some of those are actually graded periods. After school, commitment, big commitment.
So where these two, for right now, intersect is, and every living document needs it. I like the way you called out more of a newer board, and you've got kind of the threat analysis always running in your head about where might we be soft or vulnerable, which is a huge skill. But where they intersect is strategic plan. First item on the strategic plan is facilities and grounds, right? That doesn't mean that's all bond work. That deferred maintenance, all of it goes together. But publicly to the community, the bond matters because it's a bunch of resources coming to our facilities. And in our strategic plan, top of our list is facilities and grounds and upgrading. And you're right, President, the minute you start to allocate resources to something like the field, then everybody else is like, well, what about the gym? Or what about the middle school? Or what about it happens every time, and knowing what you're about, so you can tell people what you're not about in the moment is really powerful. Right? It doesn't mean the other things aren't important, but you've got the facilities master plan, you've got a reason and a rationale and an assessment for why we're doing these things first. Can you move them around? Absolutely. As long as everybody knows what you're doing, why now, great.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong for the new board members, so when we're talking about the plan and we're talking about Measure R, that plan, Measure R is only one portion of it. That plan has developer fees, general fund money.
Completely.
It's a full circle there by the priorities. You know, I don't have them memorized, but number 4 on the plan could be all funded by developer fees.
Yeah.
And, because those are the type of projects, type thing.
And also, that's important to realize too, when we wrote all that stuff, it was in preparation for the bond campaign. We didn't know, even if we were going to put the bond on the ballot at that point.
Exactly.
So as you guys look at these in the future, understand kind of the environment that we were in and how we were postured accordingly, and how thankfully that environment has changed significantly since we wrote this document.
Yeah, and it's an administrative, it's a superintendent, it's a Gabe issue. It's you got to be true to what you put on the ballot statement, but underneath that, there's room to move. But you got to be clear about what you're doing right now. So what I wanted to do is move from bond and the facilities and ground, which takes kind of center stage right at the top of your strategic plan, and go to the next one, the next topic in the strategic plan. When I was reading through it and thinking about comments that board members had made, I'm like, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question for the board. How do you hear SEL in the plan? How does that hit your ear versus how you're thinking about things? Because I heard a lot about culture, I heard a lot about respect, I heard a lot about reestablishing ourselves as a community, but I heard a lot too about safety. I heard a lot about safety, and what I want to know specifically is, does SEL mean safety to this board? Or is safety a separate and distinct thing from the broader category of social emotional learning for students? I don't know when the strategic plan got written what SEL was meant to encompass. So I'm just calling that because I do think that's a place where board members can probably talk about areas of interest as it relates to the plan, and maybe the plan needing to be re-examined a little bit based on what I was hearing. So I throw that to the board.
Well, thank you for clarifying what SEL is, because as soon as I hear SEL, my immediate reaction is it's another damn acronym.
I was struggling too, Suzanne. I had about 4 going through my mind. Which one is that?
For me personally, they're two separate issues.
Two separate issues. Okay.
Which 2 issues are those?
The SEL and the security are
Okay.
two separate, not issues, but two
So I said
separate.
safety and you
Sure.
said security, so tell me the difference
Safety,
between.
sorry, they're the same.
No, no, no.
For me, they're the same.
Safety and security.
are the same. As far as when you say safety and security for me, I think about our security and safety as a school in a whole for the kids.
Let me push you on that.
Yeah.
Do you mean just physical environment?
Yes.
What about psychological safety for a kid?
I put that in a separate category as
That's
far.
right.
I would put them more in a, like, we have our psychologists and our well centers and like that stuff, but that isn't as far as physical safety as kids being safe in school, physically, in their surroundings,
Got it.
is different for me.
So what I was just pushing on is the being safe physically, there's a locked door, there's
Right.
peepholes, there's fences, there's all the rest of that, we have security. Distinct from, we've provided a physical environment for safety, but does the child feel safe?
For me, those are two different
Okay,
categories.
perfect, perfect. Anything?
I kind of lump them together, and
Okay.
I think I say that I totally understand the physical as far as locked doors, fencing, all of that. But if you're struggling because you're bullied, and you're struggling with suicidal ideation, and you're struggling like that, to me, it doesn't matter if I have a locked door, it doesn't matter if I have fenced in, if I don't feel safe in my classroom, in my seat, because Johnny is
Okay.
making fun of me every day, and if I'm in the locker room and somebody's, antagonizing me to want to fight me, and people are whipping out their cell phones instead of helping me to social media this instance of me no longer being safe in my school environment. So for me, I kind of lump them. I totally know what you mean, physical safety. I totally agree with that too. But for me, when I think safety, I think 360 safety. I think of, do they feel safe in their seat? Do they feel safe with the kids around them? Do they feel safe that the teacher is going to speak up for them if they can't, or if they don't feel that they have a voice too? So for me, I kind of put them together.
It's interesting. So Matt made this point on facilities about kind of the whole picture, right? It's not just bond, but it's general fund, it's deferred maintenance, it's developer fees, it's this all-encompassing funding sources that can help you make the physical edifice occur. You can build this stuff because you've got more than one pot to pull from. I'm hearing this conversation, and I'm glad I called it as the SEL versus safety, because even in the conversation you're having now, I'm hearing an outside-in safety, right? Like, do we have a physical environment that should protect staff, kids, community while they're there? But there's also the inside-out safety of, even with all that there, am I experiencing a safe learning environment?
Great.
Where I know there's going to be an advocate for me. And that's where, things that people don't think about, like do we have batteries for the radios on campus? Are they charged? Like, can people, if there's a kid who needs help, can we get to them because we can communicate? Like, there's a whole other 360 thing that comes here with safety as well. I'm sorry, President, you were going to say something.
So 2 years ago, when I went to that California School Board Conference in Moscone session, I walked in there and the superintendent of San Diego was speaking, and all the tables are full, and it was just on what you're talking about. And I listened to her, and she broke it down in a way that I think just about everybody left that room with the same impression that I did. And whether it's when you take the outside and the inside, it's all the same, because if there's a hole in the dike anywhere, it's not 360. It doesn't matter if it's inside or it's outside. So she kind of pulled them apart and made them just one, safety and security. She put it all in one 306, and the way she explained it, I agree with her, because if I remember, she don't rely on falsehoods and think just because you have one, the other you can work. You need to have the whole thing all the time, and you need to have the full circle to be effective. And that resonated with me, and that's been my thinking ever since.
Got it. That's helpful.
The biggest thing for me is as they're both, I would consider them both as important to the other. For me, it's just you fix them in two different ways. And so I guess that's why I see them as separate, because I can't fix facility the same way I can fix emotional well-being, if that makes sense.
It does. So what you're starting to all do is take your path, right? You're taking your individual paths here, which is really great, healthy. Anybody have any questions from one of their colleagues about anything that's been said so far? I'm really hoping you do.
Chime in, not necessarily a question, but just my line of thinking as we went through that very difficult academic situation and we talked through some of that safety and security. I find a probing question that I've asked senior leaders in the past is, hey, what keeps you up at night, right? It's kind of faux pas now and everybody uses it, but hey, it's serious.
Right.
I got a lot of things that keep me up at night, and one of them is the thought of an active shooter on one of our campuses. Scares the you-know-what's out of me. And I'm not going to jinx it, but we've had a couple, incidents and nationally. We had a scare even within our district last year that really brought it to light that, hey, we need to do something about this because it's a different world going back to the community is changing around us. We need to adapt and modify as well. So when I voted to put that as number one, we had the same conversation. In my mind, that's exactly why I wanted it on there, because I'd have a really hard time going to sleep at night if I was on a board and we were responsible for not providing the security for parents to send their kids to the school. But I will say the other one that keeps me up at night is when you look at some of our surveys and you look at the suicidal ideation rates. Kids are struggling these days, post-COVID, prevalence of social media. It's a really tough world to be growing up in right now. And to your point, Mike, hey, how does that interact? How does that relate? And, that safe environment to learn, to live, to send your kids to have your kids involved in, what are the kids dealing with in the classroom? Our cell phone policy is definitely related to that, discussion. And so in my mind, two distinct issues, but things that will keep me up at night, because I've lost close friends to suicide, and I can't imagine as a kid going through that, and I would never want any of our kids to have to deal with it, and so unfortunately some of them had to. But to your point, Mike, we're talking a lot about, it's always about everything, just not equal intensity and focus, and safety and security in my mind is one of those. Hey, where are you going to spend your time, energy, and effort?
Yeah. Pick
Pick your priorities, work on them, but acknowledge you'll never get world peace, but do your best to try to get there from here.
Go ahead, Matt.
And I have the same feelings he does, but then also when I really got hard with the fencing at Golden West and stuff, we got homeless people unfortunately, they're homeless, right? I'm not right there in that canal and this and that and everything coming up around us, it bothered me. You don't do 26-year law enforcement and not have a kind of touch, but it's like, I said this to different people, when school's in, right? So you take your student, right? That a lot of students, as we know, they have to get up and fend for themselves in the morning and get going. We have a lot of families, mom and dad both have to work to pay the bills on and on and on. So when you start that clock in the morning and you go the school hour, and whether they're extracurricular or they're hanging out with their friends, and you continue that clock, and then what their average sleep is, we at our schools have these children 2/3 of the times that the parents do, Monday through Friday. So comes with that much time with the kids is a huge responsibility of safety and security to me,
Yeah, there's a lot sitting in that. I was a high school principal when Columbine happened. Talk about what keeps you up at night. To this day, when I'm on a campus, walking to a school building, I go into the custodial closet or wherever it is, it's generally some smaller office, and I look up that ladder onto the roof. And I was just a nut about this in Elk Grove and in Fresno. And everybody knew there would be repercussions if I found that lock at the top of that ladder was unlatched. Because it was just hard. Custodian crawls up in there, and then they gotta get to the key ring, they're in tight quarters, it's just hard, it's just easy to just flip. No, we evacuate kids for a fire alarm. My worst nightmare is that lock was unlocked, and somebody took advantage of it, and they're up on the roof, right? So those things don't go away. In your strategic plan, so there's just a push for you as a board to grapple with what was social emotional learning in the list and figure out how to articulate safety and security. Because it's going to tie with the facilities work. I mean, a lot of it is physical stuff, but there's a lot of more LCAP-y kind of stuff as well that is support services and whatnot. And if you're thinking in those broad terms, it makes it easier as a board, you're not approving the budget. You're not spending money. I like to say, you're investing money to improve the place. You're investing to improve. So the maximum degree your LCAP resources can be used to invest to improve on maybe the one half of the safety and security question, great. The other thing you raised about kids, social media, suicidal ideation, and all the rest of that, I applaud you beyond belief. Almost more so than your exceptional positioning in the board and you're passing it on. This is on those terms of importance. As they move through and progress through this district, right? It's huge. Most places don't do that. They get really vague. They get broad to the point where it's not actionable. I would argue you got a lot of actionable items there that probably need to be winnowed and focused. But if we've got this, think about facilities first, safety and security in the second position. If we don't get that right, how likely is it that kids are going to be able to focus on those academic expectations we've got in the strategic plan? Kids sitting there worried about being bullied, worried about what I got to do to maneuver between second and third periods so I don't get beat up. I'm not focusing on whatever science you guys are trying to teach me, right? So it's all about this tension back here of it's always being about everything. And only you, like I said to all of you, I'm a huge believer. Local control sits right here. For all the kids in this district, it sits right with the five of you. What you decide, what you push, what you enable, what you expect of your superintendent and team, site administrators and all the rest of that, is what's gonna get done. Figuring out how it fits in your head, going from unknown to known, is work only you can do. Some of it's talking with colleagues, you're meeting constituents in the community, you're at a weekend barbecue, two guys are traveling for a band competition and they hear about that when you're there, right? It's, however it comes to you, your responsibility is to share it with your colleagues. So you can figure out the best way to integrate all this stuff. Because you can ask superintendent to do that, and she's gonna be the first one to tell you is, I'll give it my best shot, but it's a phrase the Carnegie Foundation uses all the time. Whenever they produce something, it might be a book that's being published. It's being published and they'll still say, it's possibly wrong, definitely incomplete, even with their best work. So that's one way to think about the work that you've done so far with bond and strategic plan is possibly wrong, definitely incomplete. What do we need to do to strengthen it, tighten it, sharpen it, focus it, get it done so that every dollar we get to invest in the next bit of improvement.
Yeah, but Mike, in my opinion only, right? Everything that you're talking about, and like safety, security, bullying, if everything's done right, and the student can go from first to second period with no fears because the safety's there, the facilities are there. In my opinion, if we had a big whiteboard and we did a 360 circle on everything we talked about, and we put classroom and education in the center, every one of those are what makes that happen. And then that comes back to my old generic saying is, student first. Everything else is in place, but to me, it all improves the classroom, and that's what the kids come to school for, in my opinion. To be educated. If it's a safe environment, if they're not in fear, they're not looking over their shoulder, they have a clean, healthy place to be, on and on and on, and the distractions are taken away, we set the best stage we can for the teachers to do their job and the kids get the education. That's just kind of my layman thinking there,
It makes tremendous sense. Anybody have anything to add to that? I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to make a point by using the board as the example. Is with the five of you, pick a topic. Doesn't matter. It's something in your purview. It's personnel. You just took personnel action tonight. So personnel, it could be budget. It could be strategy. It could be safety. It could be, you pick the topic. Whatever the topic is, I will bet you all five of you are at a different level of understanding and expertise on that topic. It's just the way it is. And it's not a shameful thing at all. It's like knowing where you are matters, because that's how you move from unknown to known. Any group of people that gets together, fourth grade boys on a soccer team, guess what? They all know who the best goalie on the team is, and they know who's got the best shot at the penalty kick. They all know. Go to a second grade classroom, they can tell you, she's the best reader, she's struggling a little bit. They all know, right? There's always, the point is there's a distribution on any standard we measure across any group we ever measure. So think of this chart here as, this is all of the personnel in the entire district. There's nothing pejorative here about it. This is how it happens. Your top performers, your ones that are struggling, the people who are okay. If you ask your principals or you ask anybody, there are going to be people here, there are going to be people in the middle. They show up everywhere. You may have a few down here, you might have more all-stars here, but there are people that show up on this distribution everywhere. No shame in that. Who is, let's just say this is not just teaching the standards where there's a distribution. Let's say this is about which teacher, if we measure them on providing the safest, most secure, loving, nurturing classroom environment that you were talking about earlier. If we measured that, it'd be on a distribution. Some are better than others. The point is not that there's a distribution. The point is, we want to take everybody who's not performing well and move them this way. We want to take every one of these people and move them this way. We want to take our top performers, this person here. They're great, how do we make them super great? How do we help them, right? This is about helping people get better at their job. In Travis Unified, not just helping them to help them get better at their work. So this whole thing, the red arrows, is about moving everybody that currently works for you as your one employee. They work for her, but they work for you because you made the appointment. Move everybody to the right on whatever you're trying to get done. So it's just another strategic way to think about taking on some of these big plans of facilities and all that's encompassed, safety, all that's encompassed, academics, all that's encompassed. Who does what? How do they actually do right now? And what do we need to do to invest to move them to the right?
So I don't want to throw a wrench in. I agree with everything you said, but I think there's a point there where, being that we're using public funds to do this, there's a point where, let me say this, an old coach told me when I was athletic director, sometimes it's the best thing that happens if you cut a kid. And I says, what are you talking about, coach? Because then they can go find something they're good at, and then they can succeed more at it. So I pull that back to there. You know, when you have these district staff, and there's a point where it's not getting any better, and we're throwing public dollars after public dollars, it's time to change the guard.
We're not in disagreement.
Okay.
In fact, we're being broadcast, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say it this way. There's probably no more firm believer in what you just said than me. Like if you work with people, you've been fair, you've told them up front, and they haven't progressed and they haven't gotten better, it's time. Teacher, principal, superintendents, everybody, it's time. Like the
Now I'll be sitting at home, watching the meetings, and you'll all still be here, all three of you. And I'm only saying that because this is the first board that I've been on that I really think's got a good, it's going to continue and continue. But let me ask you something. Go back to your chart and what we just talked about. I think that one of the most important things also is what kind of leadership do you have at the top? Is a leadership letting people do what they're paid to do, or are they putting the brakes on them? So I think the person you have at the top has a lot to do with that chart too.
I agree. Is there anything you want to say to the superintendent right now?
No, you know,
I do.
Okay.
go ahead.
Tiffany, I mean, it came out in the interview. I've spent a lot of time thinking about organizational leadership, shifting to the right. And I will say, not only did you say it in your interview, but you have followed through to this day, which is, hey, we're going to put constructive feedback and performance feedback into the process, and we're going to move everybody to the right. You didn't use those words, but that's exactly what you're doing. So I completely applaud you, because that is not an easy thing to do. It is tedious, it is arduous, it is difficult to have those hard conversations. You're having those conversations. You have the process in place, people know what the expectations are, and that creates the climate and the culture, and I cannot say thank you enough for making the effort to move everything to the right. And as you said, Mike, our one employee is not only, modeling that, but you're pushing it down to the sites, which is even more important than doing it just from your pillar on high, which is, to expect that of the site administrators as well. So thank you, because that's not an easy task, and it's appreciated. But to your point, I would like to ask a question, which is, ladies, from your perspective, what have you seen? Because you've seen a dramatic shift in the district per previous conversations. And what do you, I gave my tell away because you asked specifically, so. But I'm curious to see if you see anything going on trying to shift that to the right too within the district.
I think that as much as we can sit here and say that, like, these teachers or employees or whoever work for us, they also work for the parents. And I would like to see more involvement in parents being able to give, not teachers specifically, because obviously we have a lot of them, so that would be really hard to do, like a survey for every single teacher in this district, right? But maybe some more parent involvement as far as like how parents are feeling about principals and vice principals and what's working kind of good at each different school. Only because I think that they have a lot, like, I feel like they work more closely with them than we do, at least the board. I know that Tiffany and her staff go to the site, so there's more there, but at least the board, as far as kind of what's going good and what's not going so well, especially our elementary schools, just because we have so many of them. I mean, not so many of them, but we have more than we do middle school and high school that we, can focus solely on. So I guess that would be my only.
Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, we were talking the other day, and we were talking about there's an issue, and every school does it different.
There's a lot that isn't.
You know.
Open up my here's my. So my thoughts are there's a lot of issues around dress code. Every school site has a different dress code in elementary, because we only have one middle school and high school, which is great. But it makes it really hard when you have parents who are talking with kids in different elementary schools, and they're like, oh, well, my kid can do this and my kid can do that, and it's different. It's super hard. And as much as I know that, like, there should be a dress code, I am not against the dress code. I just think that we need to look at it a little bit differently, I think. Like, for instance, my child, she's like really, like, she's all legs, she's real tall, not really tall, but she's all legs, like super skinny, like just, I cannot get anything to fit this child that goes to her knees. Let's just say that. And it's been very apparent at one of the school districts. And again, I can only speak from what I know, because I don't know, like, I've never dug up the dress code at every single elementary school, right? So it could be, I don't know. But for me, it's like the whole, like, let's stop focusing so much on, like, your two fingers have to be the size of your strap. Like, why? As long as it has a strap, 2 straps. In elementary school, it doesn't matter. And the whole, like, you can't wear makeup in elementary school. Like, why are we monitoring that as whoever? Why are we not? But again, it comes back for me, it just comes back to, like, everyone doing the same thing as far as even, like, celebrations and food and birthdays and what people are celebrating. You've got Cambridge, who is super strict on it, and Central, who's not so much strict on it. So when parents talk, it becomes a problem, because they're like, well, maybe we should go to Center because they celebrate things. And I'm only saying Center because I've heard it, again, I don't know for sure. But it's those things where they're different in each school, but we're all the same district, where I kind of hear parents talking about things that they don't like. That's all I got for that part.
My intention was to get you to bring that out.
Yeah,
because-
there you go.
Because we hear it all the time. And what I'm hearing lately is, and from one parent, and I wish I could fix it for her, but her daughter gets bullied because she's very conservative, what she wears, and other girls make fun of her and stuff. So, yeah, I could go ask teachers and principals, and they're gonna tell me what I wanted to hear, right? So I asked a gentleman that retired, I think he had like 30 years, a teacher from this high school this year, great guy. And I ran it by him, and he says, you know, Matt, that used to not even be a problem here, and this might be too old school, and I might be an old fuddy-duddy, but he said back in the day, we didn't have all those problems because we had a dress code, and I think I told you this. We had a dress code, and if you came to school and you didn't do the dress code, we had a whole stack of our PE shirts, girls or boys, nice and clean, and you had a choice, call mom or dad, have them bring you something, or you're going to wear this the rest of the day. And they said so much of it, and this is right at the break of cell phones that could take pictures, and the kids could do that. And then, you know, for whatever reason, I don't know, it went away, you know.
But this goes back to, and my kid is going to hate me for this.
Yeah, I do.
I think that the dress code needs to apply to everything in a whole, including extracurricular activities. Check out a color guard workout day. Like it's in my opinion, is very inappropriate. But that becomes the fact that like I don't feel, and nothing against the school, but I don't feel that Banning has a dress code.
It's not enforced.
I am not sure if there is a dress code.
Yeah, it's like, I dropped my son off at school and I see just girls wearing flannels and clear crop tops, and they're walking
And
around.
I'm not even against the crop top, it's
Yeah.
the ones that look like bras. I mean, like, there's gotta be something
But I
that.
feel like if we give a gray area, they're gonna
Right,
come with this.
and
So I
that,
feel
well, yeah,
like
that's,
this needs to
that's a
be,
whole other.
have we ever thought of uniforms? Like polo and khakis, or just making it?
But I don't even think that's something that we can do as a public school, can we? As far as making parents buy specific clothing? I have no idea what the rules around that is.
We would have to explore how we would make it inclusive for everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna punt on that one, that's what that was.
Well, I totally understand that, but yes, dress code, I feel like if we give a gray area, they are gonna come in. If we don't say 2 inches, they're gonna come in a bra top because it's a strap, you know, so I feel like
But
if we
see-
just make it.
But I come from a point where I personally, if it's got a strap, like, even if it's, well, I mean, obviously, we would have to make the shirt has to have a strap.
Yeah.
But I come from a point where, I'm sorry, but anyone's shoulder shouldn't be seen as a sexual in nature, and that's where I come from on that. Because there is a line where it's like, well, we also have to teach our children to not see things in a sexual light.
Right.
But there's also a line drawn where, let's also teach our kids how to be appropriate, because they are going to go into the workforce, and most of the clothing is not workforce and like appropriate. So I don't know what the answer is.
But I also think that it needs to be enforced, whatever.
Well,
like,
that's, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
whatever, but it has to be enforced, and I feel like our teachers and our office staff need to feel supported that when they call mom or dad, because I think that's like a big rock, when they call mom or dad, and mom is the one that purchased said shirt, and we're saying this isn't appropriate per our, dress code, you need to come pick them up, and they say, I work in Walnut Creek, I'm not coming there to pick them up.
But I think that comes from Matt's point where we have the extra clothing, which
And I
is
love that, because
amazing.
that's exactly how.
That's exactly what happened in high school.
Yeah, you'll be walking around with Samuel on your chest because that's Samuel's shirt from 3 years ago, so.
Well, to me, I know when there's a little bit of problem with that when, and this is all firsthand, when the last bell rings and they report to their different teams and different things, and the coaches say, I'll see you back here in 10 minutes when you're dressed appropriately. But they've been able to do that at school all day.
Yeah. And that's
So,
the biggest thing.
and I'm not trying to tell parents, I'm not trying to get into anybody's parents' business, but, you know, we have hopefully 1,800 kids here at once. You know, and I think growing up is following rules, and I think in society, in my opinion, we have too many laws and too many rules, but the kids, it's all part of, to me anyway, it's all part of learning, you know?
And that's why I think too, even saying like going, well, you could, like, I mean, take me for example, I can wear whatever I want outside of my work. But when I go to work, I have to be appropriate and wear what I need to wear. Whether that be a uniform or not, it still has to be appropriate. And I feel like that's kind of what we're doing at school. Like, we're teaching them how to go out into the world and be adults and be appropriate and all that stuff. Like, why are we not making it, obviously not so work
Right.
related, but why are we not teaching them how to choose to be appropriate when they need to be appropriate, not, you know what I mean, like,
I think it's
Go
just a
home and-
battle, they don't wanna fight.
they're all teenagers, and
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just about.
I'll just throw a counterpoint out too, because, you know, as it may be no longer anything when we talk about diversity, you know, equity and inclusion as well. And I had my eyes opened up because I have many of the same thoughts and observations as well. And for those who don't know, my wife is, you know, the dean over at Vaca High, which I consider a very conservative school. And you know what their dress code is? Across the board, it's no nipples and no genitals. And if you walk on that campus, you would be aghast. And I'm like, why would you ever do that? And it's all based on equity, based on, you know, it's not sexist, you know, based on, you know, income, based on your culture. I'll just say, what I thought was pretty straightforward, and I think I know what right looks like, I had my mind changed when I was confronted with, hey, there's a little bit more to it than what is appropriate in your mind or the board's mind. So it may or may not require, you know, additional looking at, but I will say my mind was opened a little bit when I asked that question. Really? Nipples and genitals? That's the only thing you have to have covered up? And,
That's a new one for me.
yeah.
But I feel like it puts our adults in like a weird
It,
spot also.
Let me interject here, and I'm going to do a little bit of a left turn, but it's parallel. Because we've already talked about Gabe, we've already talked about HR World with Vince, we haven't brought Nick into the conversation.
all right, Nick.
So,
It's your turn.
He's blushing
there's a
already.
bunch of academic stuff in the strategic plan, right? And this would not be the first district I've shown up in, large or small, where academic program, I've had boards say, you know, I go from third grade at one school to another school, and it feels like we're in another county. It doesn't seem like it's the same set of resources or the same program being taught, right? And that's something you're gonna bump into in all likelihood here with science and math and ELA and all the rest of that. How consistent are you with trying to move kids through the progression to make them that well-rounded scholar that you want to graduate, that can contribute? That's another level of certainty as well, that is hard to deal with. And I'm just gonna, this is zero judgment, but I hear it, and the energy comes up. It's important, your local control, and you have to deal with it. I heard cell phones on the front end, and I twitched, and then I heard dress code, and I twitched again. So I'm just gonna say, always about everything, when we get into cell phone and we get into dress code, I didn't see it here. But it will be an extraordinary time for your senior leaders and your principals to execute to your level of expectation on that. If they're successful. Doesn't mean don't do it, but it does mean think about the time horizon. What I'd like to do is draw a parallel to the bond conversation early on. Like, we hit them with the bond first, not ready. And went down. And then we went back and we worked our butts off and we walked, how many months?
Well,
Yeah, it was wild. It was wild. A lot of prep, a lot of communication, and you got it done the next time. So be thinking about that lesson learned from the bond when you're taking on some of these issues where you're going to be, and these two issues that cell phone is a little bit about, but also
Bless you.
dress code, that's where you as a governing board cross into the homes around expectations. And I'm just going to say for your consideration, the longer the run-up on that kind of conversation, tilling the soil, making sure they understand the expectations, they can see it coming, the more likely you're going to have success with those. Just cuts. And otherwise, you get to the end of second year, and you're like, well, we're about everything, but we got nothing done. Right? So just kind of keep that in your mind's eye.
yeah, but you know, and I understand what you're saying, but to the point, right here in real time, I kind of brought it home at the board meeting when Will was talking about, in my words, I told you so, and he was right, 100% right. So if you talk about an issue, and we'll just say cell phone, but we won't get into it,
Okay?
I can see where you're going with this, but we've already tried one way, and it's not working. So now maybe it is time to step it up instead of whatever the issue is. All the issues, if the board wants to start at the ground floor all over again, I think we're just wasting time. But our issues, and I'm not pointing any employee or position, but we have a humongous problem. Well, let me back up so you understand me. You know, this happens all the time in everywhere, right? A lot of people tell their bosses what they want to hear, right? I mean, it happens everywhere all the time. And unless a boss just rolls down with a bunch of questions, they're going to hear what they have to say. So it's not as people tell it here. One of our biggest issues, in my opinion, is we're not consistent with anything. As far as the kids and the structure, you know, people don't get an F for not trying. Everybody tries. It's on, and it's like you have the letter of the law, right, and then you have the spirit of the law, but we're so upside down, and I think we send the kids a lot of different signals, and I think the kids are a product for that time that they're in the environment accordingly. So if the place is neat, clean, orderly, and has some structure, I think the kids excel more. If it's loosey-goosey and they can hang out and have a good time, we're coming to school to get educated. We can do better. And that's one of my kind of pet peeves, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And I've been a parent, and you know, I put five children through public school, so I know what just the solid parents' feelings are. And I never want to go into the household because I'd kick somebody out of mine, you know, but I think we can do better on our daily routine things and how they got as far, I don't want to say as far, how they got to where we are now. It's nobody's fault, but I think we need to take a time out and look. And I don't know how involved the board, to me, so much of it can be done without the board even touching it.
There's a phrase that comes to mind for the board to consider about these issues. Candidly, all issues. This may not be your fault, but it's your problem. Because you're the governing board of Travis Unified. You may not have been the one that sparked whatever issue you're up against on the social front, but it's your problem to grapple with or not. Right, and I leave that to you. Member Schwartz, you've been kind of quiet, and I was just wondering if you wanted to add anything.
Yes, About what? I mean, I don't, I mean,
What question's rolling around in your head right now?
well, already, what we're talking about tonight, we're touching so many areas. And I go back to our foundation, our Bible, things we're supposed to be focused on, this strategic plan. And I know that you guys did a tremendous amount of work to put that together. And it's remarkable, really. But it's so full, it's so big, it's overwhelming. And so are these things that we're talking about tonight. I just, how can you narrow down? How can you focus and do well in an area and really get something accomplished when there are so many big things that you're looking at? What is more important at this point? Is it the dress code? Is it the cell phones? Is it the grade levels, the academics? Is it the safety? I don't know, like, where do you start? I just feel like we're in this sea of issues, along with all the good stuff, but still,
Yeah. Well,
it's overwhelming.
It's a function of tonight's conversation, is to try to bring a couple of things that are on paper and guideposts, setting guideposts for you, but also incorporating the other things that some of you want to talk about and figure out, how does that actually look? To the question you called, what is most important for the group? What can you all get behind? And here is where I would encourage you, this exceptional positioning, where you're all for kids, you have deep respect for each other, and you have a strong relationship with your superintendent. Now is the time, when you have this level of, this strength of a foundation underneath you, now is the time to push on exactly this question, because you get to stand on this. If it starts to fracture you as a board, or you and your admin, or you start to question whether this is really about kids or whether it's about something else, you're probably veering off course. Like, I'm not going to say work like the dickens to keep this, but please recognize what you have, because it's pretty precious. And you can use this as a way to kind of gird the conversations that probably are likely that you just raised. And it's not for tonight, but I think working as a group of 5 with your superintendent, you're going to have some conversations that are ongoing. This is supposed to be a kickoff, an ongoing conversation about, okay, what are we really doing? And some hard conversations about maybe, yeah, boy, I really think that's important, but 26, 27. So we can clear 25, 26, and have this team go as far and as fast as you want as a board. So you get to this point next year and you're going, man, that was really good, that we took some time last July and August and clarified some things for our superintendent. Because now, and we accomplished them. What I've seen about this place so far is phenomenal foundation with the board, also a great admin team. And if you focus, I'm the first to say, I'll put money down on this team. If you focus, you're going to get done what you want to get done. If you don't focus, you're going to come up short and wonder why, and go, And the only difference is when you go, that was another year kids may not have gotten what you wanted them to get. So that's what you got, that's my challenge to you, to really think deeply about, your question is a great one. Like, what's most important? And you got to grapple with it. And I don't know the process that you guys would use to do that, but I leave that to you.
Can I chime in on that? I agree with you, Suzanne, it's completely overwhelming. And if it's overwhelming for us, I ask you how it feels, for the district staff. Because you, Mike, works in pretty big districts. We're blessed and cursed to have a very small district. We've had previous superintendents come in and moderate before and, say, hey, here's the great thing about having a light, nimble, agile district because it's small, but you don't have the staff capacity, that you do in a big district. So I'll just say it out loud. I try to roll that in on a lot of our board meetings of, hey, what is the staff capacity and the timing on some of these initiatives? Acknowledging there's a lot of open issues and questions and things we'd like to work. I mean, sometimes it feels like we're a bit knee-jerk reaction based on you name it. So I always try to be mindful of the district staff on how much they can handle, because let's be honest, we talk about a lot of awesome things that are going on in the district, but they all require a significant amount of work. So we talk about the 6th grade developer fees, we talk about the bond, we talk about a brand-new elementary school, and a lot of this is on Gabe, and I know we've got, the whole staff is working on all this, but man, there's a lot of great stuff going on, but holy cow, there's a lot on the plate. So what is that priority on any given point? So I asked the board to be courteous and thoughtful and mindful of what we do ask the district staff to work on, because there is so much important stuff going on. And with that in mind, I'd like to bring us back to that, if you don't mind, real quick, Mike, because I had a couple thoughts on it.
Yep.
So that's resource management in my mind, which is the time and energy of the district. One thing I'll just throw out too, and this is just a little bit of my pet peeve, is whenever we talk about moving folks to the right, a lot of times when we hear the unions talking to us, it's all about salaries, salaries, salaries. And I think we've all said it. Hey, it'd be really nice if we could pay our teachers more, but we have a finite budget that we're all very familiar with, and it's not necessarily in the cards to be able to give all the promotions and the salary spikes that we'd like. But how, with that in mind, what other things can we do to move things to the right, that we can talk about and that we can highlight beyond just salary raises and just COLA? Hey, training, facilities, the workplace environment, not just professionally but personally. What are those intangible things that may not carry a big price tag with, but we can show our investment and our caring into our incredible staff, because without them, we couldn't do any of this. So again, I'm trying to always think about out of the box, how do we move that stuff to the right? And I think as a board, it's important for us to realize that we've got a bunch of different tools that we can use, but all of them require time, energy, and resources as well, which are always limited supply.
There's a couple of things that you said there to pull the thread on. You can always probably do a much better job of talking about the training and support you put into your staff, right? From principals to teachers to classified staff. Like we do not do a great job in public ed of talking about what we're trying to do to move people to the right and help them improve. The second thing is, the state expects that we are setting goals with our certificated staff and our classified staff every year, right? It's written in, it's baked into our collective bargaining agreement. Whether we're using that to the maximum degree possible of goal setting, monitoring their progress, and helping them, encouraging them to get better through, and it's supervision and evaluation, but I go heavy on supervision, because the more you're talking to people all year long about what needs to happen, how you can help them, how you support them, the evaluation's not a big deal at the end of the year, because everybody knows what's coming, good, bad, or indifferent. The other thing, which is a huge, it just reminded me again when I drove up and saw those buildings, you get to talk about the 6th grade project, that's a different school next year. And you can rightfully expect and say to people, we want what happens inside the classroom to match the beautiful physical edifice of this place. We want what happens inside to match the outside. When people drive down the street, they're like, whoa. Imagine if you walked into a classroom and you went, whoa, man, this is on fire in here. This is insane. You can articulate and talk about that. And it's not insignificant. There was another one. Resource management does matter. I did want to say this about big districts and small districts, because I've spent a lot of years now in the 1st, 5th, 7th, and 14th biggest in our country. And I've got a client who's got 1,500 kids, right? Here's what I found out over my career. Smaller districts in upstate New York before I came to Elk Grove. It's the same thing in every community. there's a governing board like you that has local control, that you do the best for your kids that you possibly can. And whether you got 75,000 kids, 7,500 kids, or 75 kids, guess what's the same on the ground? A teacher is working with a kid who can't read. And that work has to be done everywhere in America. There's a kid who's got suicidal ideation, and you gotta do something to save the kid's life. There's like, and that's just hard, like, just emotionally difficult, draining, extractive work. It is the same everywhere. You have adults that don't get along on a campus, that are jacking up a grade levels operation, so kids aren't getting what they need. You got a leader who hasn't been ever talked to about their performance. And it's the fourth superintendent. And the person's been doing it for 28 years. Here's something I absolutely bank on. The number of people who are talked to about performance being substandard. When this first happened to me, I went, like, oh man, I think they're playing it. But then I figured out it was real. The number of adults, and you probably in all your work environments can figure this one out too. Like a boss says something to somebody, gives constructive criticism to them about performance, and the person says, nobody ever told me. Right? And I used to think like, what? How could that be? And then I realized, oh my gosh, about 80% of the time, that's a true statement. The person says, nobody ever told me. And nobody did. And here's the second thing, if 80% of the people hear it for the first time, about 70% of them start to work on it just because they got told about it. They don't wait for a work plan or a conference or anything else. They're like, I didn't know. Well, now I'm going to do something about it because I'm a professional. Like, words matter. And being courageous enough to talk to people about what you expect and whether it's good enough or not. You used a phrase earlier, President, about the leader being able to, or is their job to get out of the way and let people do what they need to do. My only caveat to that is their job, getting out of the way for people to do what they need to do to the expected standard of performance. But if you don't set the standard for performance, then everybody's doing what they think is best, and you get dress code issues. You get differences in how third grade reading is being taught or what resources are being used. It's not, I am not an advocate of, just grind it, top down, like, yeah. Every system that works well is a combination of, from the boardroom to the classroom, but also back up. It's a combo of top-down and bottom-up energy at the same time. Superintendent's got to be humble enough, curious enough, vulnerable enough to hear from the staff and go, I hadn't heard that before. So does the cabinet, right? If you've got folks walking around in your cabinet or principals who have to say, I'm the boss, applesauce. We all know what that boss is. If you have to say you're the boss, you kind of lost the whole step there, didn't you? At least. Like, it just doesn't work in the same way. So there's a lot to consider around just behavioral expectations that you get to talk about. I mean, you're the standard setter for the whole place.
You know what drives me, one of my big pet peeves is let's go back to say, well, I didn't know. So, okay, so the supervisor, well, you know now, so now that you know, I'm not going to hold you because you didn't know, but now you know. And then the other person says, well, now that you want me to do this too, can I have a raise? Because you're just putting too much work on my plate. And I hear that over and over. And then when we go back, I understand, and Suzanne, I think you nailed it. And then where I think you followed in my term is workload in a way. The one thing, it's never going to be a perfect world, and I agree with the workload and stuff. But there's another factor there too, that just comes whenever it wants to come and has every right to come, is the community. is this. I mean, sometimes I feel like, and I know I would never position was, but sometimes I feel like we need somebody that their sole job is to address, which are good complaints, you know, there's good and bad, but if a parent, in my perspective, is going to come and make a complaint, they believe in it.
Oh, yeah.
So that has to be answered, that has to be addressed, whether it's, hey, I'm sorry, or we got to do this, it's all workload and it's all time. So, you know, there's just not enough hours in the day sometime. You know, there really isn't,
One thing we don't get more of is time.
right?
Okay, so on that note, can I address your dress code thing real quick? Sorry. My issue is not, I mean, my issue is with dress code, that's not important to me as far as like changing that part. It's more or less just us being equal across the board with all of our schools. But with that, with your whole, let's have, you know, a person kind of on the top of my list, because parent engagement is super important to me. I was thinking, you know, like the principals do coffee with a cop, or not, coffee with a cop. Let me go back to work, no. Shields had done, and I'm not sure who all had done it, but I know Shields had done coffee with principal like once a month, I think. I was just wondering if it's something that we can do as far as the board and just getting together, even like, I don't know how many often, I mean, I know we all have our own schedules, so if everyone's unavailable, that's fine, but kind of just doing some type of little like coffee with the board, just to engage with parents more and let them bring some of those questions. So we don't obviously have to answer them, I know we can't answer a ton of things, but we can bring them to our meetings and just kind of make it seem more of a parents are heard type of thing with the board. Not only that, but also with our PTA boards, because as much as I know that PTAs are parent-run and not district, I think they're super important, and I think it's super important for them to know that they have our support. And then also possibly do like a district event, just one district event, maybe the start of the year or something, which I don't know how that would kind of look, because I know it'd be a lot of people and a lot of time and stuff that would have to happen, but I don't know, those are just some of my kind of just touching back with like parents who have, not complaints, but I don't know, just a way to get more engaged. Because for me, I think if we had more engagement and the community knew that we were more, not that we're not engaged, but if that engagement came, we would have less kind of people questioning what we're doing and why we're doing it. I don't know. That's my thoughts. I'll talk about it.
Both of those, that you take the issue that's on the table is community. And that's really your parents, for the most part. I mean, yeah, business owners and others will step in and whatnot, but basically when you say community, you're talking about parents. And communicating to them around passing a bond is one thing. Communicating to them about your care and concern for their kids as human beings and their development is another. And I don't say this to add work to superintendent and her team, so keep that in mind when we talk later. But you work it from both angles, right? And I'm not suggesting you have the capacity to do it in a district this size. But basically what you're talking about is taking problems seriously and having almost kind of an ombudsman approach to solving issues and categorizing them and seeing if there are any themes or patterns that you need to get after as a district. But because you're not big enough to have an ombudsman working for the superintendent and the board to solve problems, like in a perfect world, you did this in a bigger district. Here's your card for your board. Your name and position is on the board on the front side. On the back is the number for constituent service. Has anybody ever heard a complaint to the board? Anybody? You're a grocery store? Trying to get some cheese at the deli counter, or you're trying to get a haircut, or you're pumping gas and somebody's like tapping you on the shoulder. Like, yeah. So on the back was constituent service. I understand. Here's my card. Call the number on the back. So you didn't resources are our site admin teams. They're with the community, they're with the families all the time. Do they have the right dispositions? Are they approachable? Are they at events where they can hear complaints and concerns? Do they have an AP who can help them follow up? And are they bubbling them up and making sure that Nick and Tiffany know what's going on? That's one way to do it over time, is to kind of reshape the leadership at the school to understand the importance of it from a board perspective. Right? The other one is saying, not to put this all on principals, but principals and central offices, what events can you do and publicize the heck out of over the course of an entire calendar year? It might be 2 things, it might be 3 things, where you have events explicitly trying to get people to come out in celebration of their kids, but also to hear things, right? And maybe it's joint PTA meetings. I'm just making it up. I'm making up work right now for Tiffany. It's joint PTA meetings where it's like, we want to hear concerns around safety and security. We want to hear you talk about facilities. We want to hear you talk about what your kids are getting in 8th grade math, right? And you come to them with some very specific questions that you're wide open for anything they hit you with, right? So that's well within your purview. You can think about that and talk about it, but be strategic, right? What do you really want to know? It's the old saying about the lawyer in a courtroom. That lawyer never asks a question they don't know the answer to, right? You can't do that, but you can know what areas you're talking, why you want to ask the question, because it feeds the support of your strategic plan. You're getting data back about science not being as great as it needs to be in 7th grade. That's one of the things you want to talk about. Parents will talk to you about anything you want to engage in. That's another way to do it, is to go to them with specific sets of things that show you're interested, and then you act on the feedback. That builds strength and community in a big way. And guess what? The next time you go for a bond, they're not just going to have to be convinced of a bond. They're already like, these people ask and they get things done. They're credible. They're honest. They're trustworthy. They finish it. They tie the loop. They get back to us. Like, they would not be here saying we need more bond money if they didn't need it. We owe them, right? This is about our community. Because what you're talking about is our community. I just want to point this out to you. As a group of 5, you own what goes on here. By virtue of your behavior tonight, you own this place. It's huge. Most don't. A lot of places they're thinking about themselves, not the kids. They're thinking about another position, not the community. It's different here. It's for you, it's yours to grab.
I think it would be great to see more parents just in a classroom, whether it's back to school night, and I feel we could totally encourage parent involvement just by simply asking maybe teachers to, if your student shows up to back to school night with their parent, you'll get extra credit. Something so little that would mean that the kid has incentive to tell their mom and dad, hey, back to school's tonight. Because a lot of parents, I mean, I read every Parent Square newsletter that I get. I listen to every message that I receive on a Tuesday night that this is not a common planning day from the City Shields, but I'm a very involved parent, so I feel sometimes it's the kids where it's like, oh, I know there's back to school night, I'm not getting a really good grade in math, so I'm not going to tell my parents to come here, but to incentivize it a little bit for the kids, like, hey, extra credit for you if you come here, getting the parents in there, and then maybe just having the next board meeting printed out for parents. I think just to kind of get more parents kind of on board would be great. That would mean that we would have a fuller house, once a month when we are talking about these things that are going to directly affect their kids. And if they do have concerns, we have open session every meeting that anyone can bring something that's not on the agenda up, and they have 3 minutes to say whatever, and that's something that the board will get together with the assistance of Tiffany and the staff to really talk about, these big rocks. But I think getting the parents in could be something so simple as coffee, or, if you have working parents that can't come to coffee, extra credit. I mean, I know that that's what they did in my high school years and years ago, but I definitely feel like it was like, oh, well, if I can get extra credit just for them showing up, why not? You know?
I think the only fallback we would have to really look at on that one, because I love the idea, or just something parents
Something,
is working parents.
Yeah.
Because if I can't go because I'm working and my kid could get extra credit, you're gonna believe it, you're gonna hear from me.
Right.
Just
Or
because
it
of
could
that.
even be, I mean, it could even be a Teams something, or, you know, I feel we can even have like a virtual option, or the people or the parents who
Well,
reach
just
out
getting them signed up on interviews.
would be huge.
Yeah.
Or maybe that even could be like, the class that gets
Yeah.
100% of their parents on
I mean, they
Aries
do that on, what's the run thing?
Impact Day.
No, what's the run thing?
Oh, like the fundraiser one?
Yes.
Oh,
Apex.
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
Fun run.
thank you. The fun run.
They do that on Fun Run, because
Yeah.
if you, the class with the most parents who signed up for the Fun Run get
Yeah.
some, at least at Cambridge, I don't know yet, but.
I would
like,
totally take time off work to scoop ice cream for the winning class. Like, I could, but I mean, I definitely think there are things, Impact Aid was a huge thing. When I was on the PTO for Travis, I literally was like, I will take a clipboard and walk when the parents line up 30 minutes early and walk to every car and say, while you're waiting, please fill this out. While you're waiting, please fill this out. And really check them off one at a time. I'm like, hey, what time do you want me to show up? Because I'm ready. We need to get Impact Aid. And that was before I was even on the board. You know, so I feel like just getting us out there, I mean, I would love to just show up to a school. You know, I think getting our faces out there, I mean, everybody knows and loves you guys, but I think maybe if time permits for us to just.
Did you guys say, oh, shucks? Did you much on that one, the two of you? Never respond to.
No, but you know, when my son was a freshman here, right? It came up through Foxborough and then came here. What got me is, and I bumped into the teacher because I was on campus for whatever reason. I said, you know what, I really appreciate what you do. You know, she would take, and I'm not talking about a school message, she would take from the science building probably 5 minutes out of her time and send out a message to all her students' parents for the week. And that's what she did. So when we started these weekly calls with the schools, I friggin' hammered on the table. I got that going, so parents would hear. But by the time he was a sophomore, there was 4 or 5 different teachers with this personal touch. So to your point is when it was that personal down there, and I'm not trying to tell a teacher what to do, the parents feel more of a part of it. But then on the other side of it, with 1,300 out of 1,700 kids doing sports, right? You can't run that without parents and volunteers. There's no way, right? And our schools here, we go so deep in playoffs and all this. My big thing is everybody got thanked. Because that's all we could pay them is, hey, thank you, appreciate this. And the more welcoming and just simple thank yous, and pretty soon you've got a ton of people helping. There's times where we would say thank you, but maybe next time, because you can only fit 6 people in a snack bar and 25 want to just volunteer now, and you know, I'm just using that stuff. So I think it's a personal contact that brings the parents.
I would say could have had a teacher like that this year, and it was awesome. Every week,
Yeah.
history.
It's just,
It was great. I knew exactly what was happening, I knew exactly what to talk to her about.
yep,
Told me about test dates, what they're doing, studying. I'm like, girl, let's go. Notebook done, I see it. Like, it was great.
In 30 years, probably the most impactful thing for me as a parent was I got stopped by a parent, grandfather, in Southwest Fresno, who said, hey, Superintendent, I want to talk to you about an idea I have. Okay, what is it? Like, and Southwest Fresno is Black Fresno. It's considered the Black Valley. Like, this is concentrated poverty, it's the poorest zip code in the state, and largely everyone lives there is African American. And he said, our problem is dads. We need dads. say more. Like, I want to do A, B, and C. Started it at 2 elementary schools, and the next thing I knew, it was at my kid's middle school, a 5A middle school. And it was just a dad's day. And it took a while to plan, but he was all in it. Reminds me of like you walking and knock doors for, like, there was a passion, so he was in it, and we supported him a little bit, and basically put together a program that was 3 hours long, maybe 2.5. You come fourth period, your kid would be called out of class, you'd sit out in the quad, you'd talk to him about the grade, you'd show what work he was doing, you got to meet a couple of teachers, wasn't disruptive to the ongoing instructional environment, and then lunch happened, so, you know, everybody got a sandwich for lunch, and the men were in the cafeteria together. Someone would speak about being a dad, parent, and the difficulty. Guys are starting to cry, right? And then guys are all starting to ask one another, like, oh, how do you do that? How do you do that? It was one of the neatest experiences where dads started to talk about the difficulties of being dad with teenagers and all that you go through. The boys are different than the girls, and and it became a thing that just rolled. When they stopped doing it, people got mad. Right after I left, they got mad because it's like, I look forward to that every year. Or I'm aging out, but neighbor down the street wants to be involved. Like, who do you want to target? And what's the impact you're shooting for? I have no doubt you could knock it out of the park on any one of those, as long as you get clear about what you're trying to get done. I'm mindful that we're short of 7 o'clock. There's still good energy in the room. Unless people have burning issues, I tend to like to figure out how to finish a few minutes early and on an up note, instead of people going like, oh man, that last 15 minutes, that was brutal. Jeez.
I have one thing left. Sorry.
No, not at all.
Sorry, board. Well, I'm only sorry because I have brought this up before. Have we talked, and I know I missed 2 meetings, so if we talked about it and like made a plan, please let me know. But we talked about the second field and what we're doing. No. And if we haven't, my solution, because obviously I'm all about like, we
Talk
can,
about the what?
the second field.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the thing, I am mindful of the fact that we only have so much money and we have to do what is most
But
important.
we have talked about it as far as me, and Gabe's got a heck of a good update. I know it's all dead over there and it looks terrible, right?
And that's what we're gonna be practicing on in a short few couple weeks.
Nope.
What are we doing in a short few couple weeks?
Gabe?
Gabe!
Oh, I've been all over it. Believe me.
Okay, I like it.
So, what's happening, well, so the longer term plan, some of the fencing and asphalt that goes up kind of to where the dugouts are on those 2 fields,
Okay.
that stuff's all gonna get torn out. We're gonna come in, we're gonna basically, I forgot the technical term for it, but we're basically gonna kind of tear some of the dirt and everything up, and then we're gonna roll it out flat and make sure it's nice, flat, and level. We're gonna come back in, we're gonna seed over it, so we should have a pretty good, almost full football field size thing to practice on in the fall.
So we're doing grass though?
Yes, we're doing grass. Turf was in the millions.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so-
My question though is what are we doing to prevent the gopher holes that we had before?
So, a lot of it is just gonna be, maintenance, backfill, it's just gonna have to be us staying on top of it. I mean, right now, we're trying to do the best we can to try to keep them out, but there's only so much
Right, no, I.
really can do in that department. So a lot of it's just gonna be staying on top of it. We need to be notified when, when they pop up, so we know to have our guys go out, make sure nothing's in there, fill it with sand, roll it flat, just to kind of keep it maintained.
Okay.
So that's also important. So we need to make sure that we have that communication. We will have our guys coming and checking it, but obviously,
Will it be a line?
oh yeah, of course.
And then what about electricity out there?
I'm still working on that. We're thinking we can tap from a nearby electrical source. Yeah.
Cool.
But that may not be this fall, electricity.
So we're still working on that. That's one of the
But
things that's still up in the air.
And
I
that's
just
not
wanted
like,
to
this
say
is
that.
all and I totally understand. So then, thank you. for-
The baseball scoreboard has electrical plugs there, and you guys can tap in, the district can bring their people over there and put them so it's just straight plug in.
Like an electrical, like a,
And there's already like a little old-fashioned light switch there.
oh,
That, I mean, literally, that's an hour's labor, and you guys are ready to go with that,
okay.
easy.
So with that, I love that update, thank you. Have you talked to Chris? 'Cause-
Yes.
okay, cool. Kind of based off of that, my whole point of this was if we didn't have a field, but it's kind of just having even space, even use of the entire school's facilities. And I feel like that's a little more top on my list. And I know it sounds dumb, but there's a lot of things around sports at our high school. And as much as I love sports, I mean, Little Netherlands are sports, so it's great. I think that we need to really look at kind of how we look as a school or district or whatever at other activities that kids do. I know I've talked to Chris, I've talked to Shield, and I've talked to Murph, and there's a whole plan. But I'd really like there to see an actual policy in place for this plan to happen, because if we have extracurricular activities at the school, they should all be able to use every single facility we have in an even manner, rather than below sports getting it first, or anyone getting it first. Anyone shouldn't be more important than the others. And I think that we need to look at it across the board as in making sure that it's even across the board. And that's just to be fair to all of our students.
Can I comment on that? So, I know right where you're at, because I've been there, right? So right now, yesterday, the day before, it's not gonna happen because we basically have one person. The workload is so heavy, it can't be done, and you're getting pushed by this and you're getting pushed by that. And CIF made it worse now, because now you can practice year-round, so where does everybody want to be? But, with that said, and I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, so I was doing this on our superintendent's desk, and this school year, we have help here, someone that's done it for a long time and is good to help our present person, and you're going to see all the extracurricular. You're not going to have to wonder, where am I going to be next week? You're going to be scheduled out, and it's going to be done, and everybody's going to get the right piece of the pie. And I think band, because that's who you are, band booster, I think,
I'm not a booster anymore. I
well,
guess
okay,
technically I am a booster.
but band, who has kind of got the leftovers from many years,
Or nothing at all.
or nothing at all, I think you're going to see a whole new culture on how this stuff is done, and people are going to be happy. And a lot of the little extracurricular, once this happens this year, which I think is great, is going to have more kids participating on it, because the structure is going to be great.
I think my only question would be, is it going to be even as far as picking? Like, I'm really kind of frustrated with going, okay, well, we got the gym. We were offered it on a Sunday. Who's going to come practice on a Sunday? Where everyone else is offered it in the times that they want it. Does that make sense?
I think you're going to see that go away, and I think you're going to see everybody's going to get umpired fairly, real fairly, if that makes sense.
Very clear. I am not only advocating for band, I'm advocating for if our OC needs it, or art needs it, or whoever needs it. I just want
I get
everyone
it.
to be important.
I get it. As an AD, I used to throw people out of the Shubin so robotics could put and when they were getting ready, oh, you can't do this, this isn't, I think you're going to see all that go away, come the first day of school in August. And I know they're putting in a lot of time and it's overdue, but it's fixed. I really think it's really fixed. So I'd like to make one comment real quick where you're leading up to, this is only my opinion, right? I think these workshops are healthy and great, right? Did I learn something tonight? Yeah. But I also think as much workshops and everything you do, I hope people like watching or don't expect, okay, so we're good now. We'll get a 5-0 on everything for the next 6 months, because that's not what it's about.
That wasn't on the objective.
No, it wasn't. I'm just saying this, if there are these people looking,
Yeah.
we're still all elected officials, and we still, you know what I mean?
You've got a lot of work to do to refine your plans and get clearer about what priorities are and all the rest of that, and that's for you to do.
I almost feel like these are better, like even not having, I love having you here, but even just if we did this as a board, I feel like this would almost be better as us not feeling so overwhelmed because we kind of are talking about the direction that we're going. And I know the one-on-ones are great with you, but I feel like I don't ever talk to the board outside of, and that's because we aren't allowed to. But I feel like I really like these conversations where we can all just talk about kind of what we're doing, what page we're on, and I feel like it might help with us feeling overwhelmed also. I know that we don't all have a lot of time already.
Is this something that we'll be doing more of, or is this just like it's a quarter, once a year type thing?
Well, I would say that would be the discretion of the board. So I know we're going to have this specific one, but I don't want to say that's not this, because it is. It's about deciding on the priorities. It is about grappling with these big issues. But also, if this is something that you have an interest in, we can arrange it, like tell the president, tell me, and we can get things set up. We can calendar them way in advance to do them, once a semester, or honestly, at the frequency that you find helpful. And we can arrange it in lots of ways. This obviously was very kind of open for any possible thing, and that was really important. That was a huge value of this, was just getting everybody together. There are no limitations on us doing it. We have to have an agenda, we have to post it in advance.
And just as a reminder to the board members, just because I meet with Tiffany and I put things on the agenda and this and that, any board member, all they have to do is send it to me at least 2 weeks in advance, right? And I'm not gonna modify, shame on the president if they even try to modify any president, anybody. You could put anything you want on that agenda. And you're not gonna get a call saying, well, I don't think it's the right time, or let's word it this way. What you email me is going on that agenda. And I mean, that's just how history works and stuff, type thing. Just because we have titles, between now and when my time's up, if you have anything, just fire it off to me and I'll get it on that agenda for you. It's not a problem. My goal as a president is everybody feels equal. And with the great help of Will, how would we interview? Like we interviewed the superintendent, we made sure that every board member there had equal say in everything. I think it worked really, really well, and so that's how I always envisioned the board,
I think the board did a great job with this election. I know I had that conversation with you on our one-on-one, but I really do think that we have the right people in the right spots. And I really think it starts with you. As a parent, I say this time and time again, as a parent, prior to even being on the board, I did not feel supported with the prior superintendent.
Heard, supported.
Yeah, I didn't feel, yes, I mean, I had a huge issue with bullying. I I did not feel supported at all, to the point that I was like, you know what? There's zero support there, so we're gonna take care of this here on our level. And we did. But I definitely feel the work that we do and the work that the team does is seen. And I think that that really makes a huge difference of not just moving us to the right, but really being in that kindergarten class again and again and again, to really be able to see what the teachers are coming and telling us that that's a big issue. And that's not you sending Nick, it's you going yourself as you sitting in the seats. And I think that that is a huge culture change that the district needed. So I definitely think that we all have the right people. And I said this to you also, I feel like everybody on the board, we all have the same goal in mind, and that really is the students. I feel like we all really work well together, and we can, you know, piggyback on some things or disagree on some things, but it's all in the same direction for our kids, so.
Sure.
Well, thank you. I think I'm gonna take that lull at 7:13. Because I'm not going to 7:16 and having to hear it.
You did a hell of a job, thank you.
No, yes, I think
Well,
you.
Yes.
you're very welcome. I'm happy it was of some value.
It was.
You really did the work, and I encourage you to keep doing it. Keep working together, keep working with your superintendent, and there's really nothing you can't get accomplished. You just gotta narrow it. Just gotta focus. But it's all sitting right in front of you. So congratulations. And enjoy your turkey sandwich.
Yay.
Later.
Thanks, Mike.
See how I took credit for it? How was your sandwich, you guys?